What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the place where you can find the latest NFT news and the most reliable NFT content. This is Above the JPEG with your favorite new friend, Kango Lin. So this week, we have our very content manager at Above the JPEG, Grace, on our podcast. So Grace is a veteran in the cannabis industry, and she joined the team because she really wanted to learn how NFT is going to aid that industry. How is NFT going to play a role in cannabis? So she spent quite a lot of time learning about that, and she has that expertise there. So today we're interviewing her to find out what are some interesting things that's going on in cannabis and how can NFT be utilized to solve problems in the industry. Grace, welcome to Above the JPEG, the podcast interview. We're wrapping up this season, and I'm very glad to end with you, our very content manager at Above the JPEG.
Yeah, hi, thanks. Nice to be here. Finally to be on the podcast that I've been sharing.
Yeah, so I know this is the first time you've been running our social media for a while now. You've been doing a tremendous job, and this is the first time really having you on the show. And I want to use this as a gesture to wrap up our season one, right? As our season one coming to an end, I think it will be a great idea for me and you jump on this call together, and I really want to demonstrate why we started Above the JPEG, as well as stories from your side. I know you have been very successful with the cannabis industry in Texas, doing cannabis, Texas Cannabis Today, and all that very successful media work. So starting off, I want to let's get a sense of where you're coming from, right? Why were you interested in NFT while you were in the cannabis business, Grace?
Yeah, so so I always start off with like, I've always been a really nerd for social media platforms and just any new technologies in general that come up. And when I learned about NFTs and wrapped my mind about how powerful they are, not as a like first just of course for a piece of art, because back in 2018 no one really knew what exactly an NFT would do. So I was just kind of kept my eye on it, and I knew that it was going to be something special. So as I was in the cannabis industry, I also keep an eye on the crypto and everything. And like it was still like on the blockchain, like Web3 wasn't coined or anything yet, at least that I was aware of. And like I followed those things because I knew like within the cannabis industry there's a lot of banking issues, and there's a lot of other things that
Yeah.
are involved, not just because of legacy, aka black market, but I call them legacy markets, not just because of that, but because of people's stigma against the plant, and people should be able to pay for them or have their own transactions for it. So seeing the opportunity for that, and then later on understanding how the blockchain works when it came to how different growers were using it, how people were using AI with their farms and their mass and their different productions that they were putting out. There's a lot of benefit to it, because for the first time we're able to collect all of this information and have it recorded on the blockchain, when for so long, because cannabis has been in prohibition not only in the United States but around the world, we're able to actually commit these things to history for the first time. So it just really blew my mind. And of course, I got all nerdy into it. And then, yeah, now I'm here.
So Grace, give us a little background run here. Give us some rundown on your background, right? I know you're extremely passionate about cannabis, and that's how it led you into the crypto space at all. Give us a little rundown, like what you did before, so that way our audience get a very complete picture of who our content manager is, and how is he so competent at the job she does.
Yeah, so I've always been really passionate about just different social media platforms. I love behavioral science. I love the way everything connects and how you can track behavior, and also see like how things become popular and how they don't and how trends are set, but actually seeing the data behind it. Back in 2013, when I was getting my bachelor's degree, I took the first digital communications class at my college because it was still brand new. Like it wasn't, it was there. And so I learned about all the analytics. I learned what it took to run social media through this one class. And on top of like all of the other native experience that I've had. So I run a couple different accounts in different areas. I've had, it starts all the way back to Zanga, all the way up to current, whatever, any really social media platform I can get my hands on. But a lot of that started when I was like a kid just hanging out on the internet. Before Facebook, there was things called like, I can't even remember them right now. My mind just went blank. But there are different types of social media platforms out there doing what Facebook was doing, but Facebook did it different and better. And so that's how we got to where we are now. So I was able to see and notice like what the trends are and like how certain startups were implementing philosophies and the ethos of who they were, like from the very beginning of it. And like
You're
I had friends
OG
as it
now, huh? OG of
yeah, I'm
social
OG.
media.
OG, really. Yeah, like and like once my friends were starting to get hired and like graduating and going into the FANG, especially back then, like Google, they were getting hired into Google and Dropbox and like all of these places back in the 2010s. I just kept an eye on it and like kept tabs on like all my engineer friends, all my social behavior friends, all my sociology friends, because I knew there was going to be something.
So
And then it evolved
where did your
into this.
passion for cannabis come from? Is that coming from about at that time where you were playing around with social media?
Yeah, kind of. Oh, because yes and no. Yes, because I started social media when I was younger, and I've always loved cannabis. But the way I grew up, it was very much like a no drug home. We didn't like nothing like that. Grew up with really pretty strict parents, but I was always curious about it. And it wasn't until I was supposed to actually go to Colorado, Denver, Boulder, Colorado for they have a really good communication program up there, and I wanted to move up there. But then as I was learning about like the legalization and everything that was happening, and then
And that
finally
was your first
until
time trying pot?
first time trying pot. Oh
Not
my
in
God, I have
Colorado?
crazy stories. Not maybe.
That was how you started um, getting into the cannabis, just moving to
I mean,
Colorado.
no, actually, like I was watching, I watched all the legalization because again, like there's so much speculation and stigma still around it for me, but all I knew is I was really curious about it because I like the way it elevated the rooms and it just and the just different experiences that you get from it. So I was always curious, but it wasn't until like and like I had different smoking experiences throughout high school and college, but it wasn't until 2014 when the first farm bill passed, and then in 2018 when the second farm bill passed, where a president during that time legal like passed the farm bill which allowed hemp to be legal in all 50 states. And right then I just knew like I had to jump into the industry and this is what I was
Wow.
going to do. And so I jumped right on it. I started my blog and I started networking. I have like a really great group of friends and who are now the top, I will admit, like there are top consultants in the state of Texas, if not the United States,
Wait,
because we all
for cannabis?
started at the beginning, just like with Above the JPEG, just like with all these other places. Like you meet people as they're rising, or like rising tides floats all boats. I think that's how it is. Yeah,
For
like
cannabis consultant?
yeah. I mean, like I consult in cannabis too. So if like, hit me up if you need some consulting for what you want to do in hemp.
That's
Not
dope.
really good at rec stuff. Like it, not really. I have friends I can connect you with rec, but if you're in the hemp space and you want to start a hemp business, definitely contact me. I have a
Wow.
consulting fee, but like
That's right.
I'll get you up. I'll get your business up.
Shout out Grace. Shout out Grace, the cannabis consultant. I don't know much about it, but that's dope. So, okay, let's bring our focus back a little bit to the crypto, right? So that's amazing. I love the fact that you went from a no drug family. I don't know if marijuana's drug at all. I don't know. It's hard to define nowadays, right? It could be, it could not be. But from there, you mentioned that it's really interesting how the crypto use cases could potentially solve some of the problem that you're seeing in legalizing, really making purchasing cannabis easy, right? So what are something that you've first heard of, and when was that?
when I first heard of it, use in the cannabis space, like use like okay, well, it's a really complicated question actually. I think when it comes to like actually seeing the input, like the practical application of it, was brands like there's like Crypto Cannabis, which they have an NFT collection that goes out, and so far like they are in their discords. Oh my god, the cannabis discords are crazy, just like discords and NFT are crazy. So the crypto cannabis was the first one that did a really good job. Then right after that, I learned about one called, and that in crypto cannabis, I think they've now launched a brand, so they actually sell products with too, but their basis of the NFTs. And then I learned a,
How does it work?
oh, I can't hear you.
How does it work with
Oh,
crypto cannabis? How does it work?
okay. With crypto cannabis, it's the same like buying NFTs. Like it's just they didn't, you are releasing a collection, but with them they had like a very pixelated version NFT, which you would generate your NFTs like anyone else with their projects. So it's just more so like what the art that attracted you, just like with NFTs. But then it's more so again, just that's where like all the parallels are the same. It doesn't really matter if it's cannabis or not. Is it a good team that you could depend on? Are they going to have more than one? Are they actually like holding on to the stuff so they're going through their mint process? Are they going to pull out? What are their overall goals and missions? So really, I think that's the interesting part about the cannabis space is those things, if they're passionate about cannabis itself, it's your time to shine in NFT world, because you can put all of that stuff into your NFT and your mission, and it just blows up your project faster.
And with crypto cannabis, I've never heard of this. Like, I'm pretty ignorant in that aspect. But is it when you buy? Is it just a art that's based off cannabis style art, or is it there's some perks that comes with buying these NFTs, such as certain type of hemp that's gonna be shipped to your house?
Yeah, there are perks, and I think it just depends on which collection that you're buying into. It started out so like because we're talking about starting out. It started out with just the images, but then of course as you know the smart contracts and everything else has developed, they've added those other perks in there, and then they only sell it in certain states. So of course, if they're selling cannabis with it within however they're doing it, or they're sending it over. That's how it works.
That's
That's
crazy.
last I checked. That's how
If
it
you
works.
think,
So sorry, crypto cannabis. If you're listening to this and it's wrong, I'm sorry. Don't at
yeah,
me.
it's okay. But this is one thing I think crypto cannabis, if it's only selling to a couple states, I think this is where the blockchain advantage being kind of taken out of the box, because blockchain in itself, I think it should be accessible anywhere you, no matter where you at. I think you should be able to access your NFT, your blockchain, right? I think that's one thing where I don't know, Grace, what do you think about it? What do you think about that? Even when it comes to selling cannabis NFTs, you have to sell it to a certain state. Do you think the Web3 cannabis people should sell stuff regardless of the jurisdiction, or do you think they should be, more compliant to the rules and not really taking advantage of the Web3 technologies here?
I think so. You could still have hemp products. You could still have legal quote unquote THC products and that you can sell places. But I don't know if that's what these groups are doing. Now, at the end of the day, you're taking on a risk, just like with just like with crypto, you're taking on a risk. And are you willing to make that risk if it's shipped or found in another state? I mean, I'm not gonna I'm not here to say like confirm or deny if I've ever done that, but I think those are the types of risks that you're running into. But I do, to answer your question, opening it up the whole jurisdiction, I 100% see that already happening. Like that is just
You mean the
Web3
United
was built for
States?
the yeah, was
To
it Web3 was built for the
Oh, so do you mean that people in cannabis is going to use the tool of Web3 to make THC product available across the United States? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think you can. And then it's again, if you're delivering on your product, you're taking on a certain risk because it's not federally legal. You have to think about who your audience is, and like, do you like it? You're just getting into black market like uh conversations, and it's just like,
Black
I mean,
market.
I can talk
Who
about.
defines black market, right? Just
Well,
kidding.
yeah, I mean, like legacy markets. So like, it's just it's that's kind of like, wait, that's the stuff that I can say being recorded on the podcast.
I see. I see. So this is interesting because this is why I see a lot of conflicts comes in between in many industries, is that between the legal compliance, and sometimes it's not always that clear, and the technology itself, right? The technology can do many things, and the technology has a lot of benefits, but we might not be able to always take advantage of it if we um if we if we don't know the legal regulations. And as entrepreneurs, whoever's listening to the podcast, this is a good thing to think about, right? The other day I was just listening to this presentation by a Web3 lawyer in France, and one of the things he mentioned is that when the legal regulation is very chaotic, let's say in the crypto industry, there's a lot of things just really chaotic. When the legal regulations are unclear, what happens is that you don't want to be the low hanging fruit. What it means is that when, let's say, you're a herd of sheeps, right? They give this example: you're a herd of sheeps, and when the wolf come chasing, you just all you need to do is outrun the other sheeps, because they don't have the ability to be able to catch everybody. So they'll get the low hanging fruit. So as long as you make sure that you don't become the low hanging fruit, then you're probably okay. I don't know much about
Mhm.
cannabis. I don't really use it myself. How do how do how would you advise entrepreneurs in the space, in the cannabis space, who are planning to use the Web3 technology to do that, to do exactly that? Is that to be safe with the legal compliance, as well as at the same time we'll be able to export as much value as we can from the Web3 technologies?
Just like Web3, you're going to invest in infrastructure. How are you like, so when in cannabis you have COAs, which are certifications of analysis. What are ways that, and that's okay, I have a cannabis drink right here. So high spirits, they're not
Wait, that's a
hashtag
cannabis
not.
drink?
Yeah, so it is. It's illegal
You,
it's illegal in all the states. I can't. My background's messing it up. But like in one
if you
point
hold it
here,
close to your chest, it will show.
oh, okay,
Yeah.
here, but like right here, you have a QR code. And what this is connects to is called a COA, which is a certification of analysis, uh, of of analysis, and it tells you that how much THC is in there. It tells you what the pesticides are. It's going off on the details of that product itself. Now, when you scan it, sometimes websites go. So there are processes, and I guess I'll say this, but like there are processes like that's not going directly to the website properly. Like there are ways where we can streamline the user experience and collect the data that we need that is very like helpful to the user and the company, that we have the opportunity to take advantage of. And that's just one aspect of it. Like we have a system called, if on legal states, you have a system called metric, which uses a ton of plastic and a ton of waste because it has to click and has to track that plant from the beginning to end. Now how can we add the NFT technology to that? And also within the pesticides reports from the labs, how are we going to make sure like within the stores, people are keeping a transactions of the specialty stores that they go to. So you have cookies. One of my clients, Shop Mary J, they're iconic. So them, you have different brands that you want to like kind of uphold, that you hold and support. You have people like the Last Prisoner Project, which helps prisoners get out of jail. For they pay legal fees. And you also have, which, and then that's one. And then you have 40 tons brands, which is actually an NFT project, where they have that whole process in the back end, where they too are paying prisoners out, because nobody should be in jail for weed. And then you have also people who are having DAOs within the organization. So you have different DAOs in the cannabis, and specifically in Texas, we have a lot of divided divided support within like the left and the right. And so now if we can just show that, hey, so many Texans, like 75% of Texans support legalization, and we can prove it through through different DAOs or through different supports, we can convince and sway the people at the top, at the bottom. This is what they actually want. Like, this isn't fudged,
I
this
see.
isn't data. So now you're now using it for the past stuff in the law, but that's just like Web3 and legal stuff in general. But that's how we can use the infrastructure of Web3, aka the DAOs, in order to influence what's currently going on. And you can say that by showing your wallet, like, yeah, this is what I support. Like, if a blue and a red person's talking, or a green person,
It's a very
whoever.
transparent process. It's more transparent. Now people can see who did what, if the voter, if the petitioner want to disclose their name, right? By the way, what I shout
Yeah.
out here is that before I get into the NFT business, well, not right before I get into NFT business, I was helping a lot of influencers with their NFT launch. It was really just pictures and arts and stuff. And one of the things we did was working with Last Prisoner Project with Jackie Hollywood. It was one of my friends from Los Angeles, and she was selling NFTs to donate to Last Prisoner projects to release these prisoners who are locked up for certain laws, right? Certain laws that's legal today in California. So just want to shout out there. I think this is so iconic. But anyway, so Grace, I was really I was trying today before I jump on the call, I was thinking, hey, me and Grace is going to wrap this up. We're gonna talk a little bit about the JPEG, what we learned and all that, but it turned into this whole discussion on how cannabis industry is currently using Web3 today, as well as how they can continue and use it in a very sustainable way. So, I feel like I learned a lot. I really appreciate you, Grace, for sharing this knowledge, because this is the knowledge that not many people have, and it's surprising that I never asked this. It's right hiding in the backyard of about the JPEG, right? So this is really great stuff. I really appreciate you, Grace, for sharing all this stuff.
Yeah, of course. Anytime. If anyone has any questions, I'm Texas Cannabis Today on Instagram, or on all. Instagram is the best place to find me. Also on Twitter, you'll find me there, which I'm .thc, because instead of .eth, I'm .thc. And
THC.
yeah, I thought it was cute, so I was anyways. So that was on Twitter, and I'm there a lot. And of course on yeah, and then Grace or Not is my personal one, and that's kind of like where and Grace or Not FM is, that's where my like more influencer stuff is. That's where I talk more about like female-led projects, and just anything that I like in the Web3 blockchain space. And a lot of
Yeah.
nerdy social media stuff, like nerdy
I
updates. Like,
I just say people go follow Grace, because I've checked out a lot of her content and it's really good stuff. And her content is not just that she puts content, but she also puts really relevant contents for her audience. A lot of stuff that you see from her cannabis page or even above JPEG NFTs, it's very personalized to our audience. So, highly recommend anybody who's listening to this to check this out. But, also, Grace, I was wondering, how do you think about the JPEG? Because I guess I can start this, right? So since we're wrapping up the season, above the JPEG, I started the original name wasn't above the JPEG. Like I said, it was fuck the JPEG, right? We started off because there was a need to inform the audience that it's not just JPEG. It's not just pictures that's being traded on OpenSea. NFT, non-fungible token, as a technology in itself, has so much applications. It can do so many things, right? So our mission at first was really to set out to educate more people, as well as learning ourselves. Mostly to me, I was just thinking, hey, it's a great way for me to learn. What are the applications and true applications of using NFTs? And there was so many entrepreneurs, but it was really rare to see good use cases. And what we did about JPEG was to brought on these very influential guys like Peter Saddington and Cyrus from ShopX, right? These people who have done extremely well with NFTs and cryptos in the space to educate us on how they are using NFTs and Web3 technologies, as well as Jess Sloss, is the upcoming YC of the Web3, right? The biggest DAO accelerator. C Club is the biggest DAO accelerator now. And he's on our podcast as well. We have all these very amazing guests, very prestigious guests from the industry to show us how exactly we work with NFTs and other Web3 technologies. And I think personally, I've learned a ton from just interviewing these folks, right? I've learned so much, and I don't even know how to conclude this today. But what is your learning, Grace? What do you think how's this journey been for you on About the JPEG?
I feel like managing the content on the content side on each of the platforms, it kind of gave me opportunities for one to like experiment with some things that I wanted to enjoy, because I was learning a lot, because a part of my process is going out and see what other people are doing in the Web3 space and how they're running their socials. And
About the
it's just really,
JPEG daily.
yeah, like we had that, and like what's like subscribing to different newsletters and like really getting my foot in of not just like how people and it's communicated, but seeing also the Gen Z influence within that communication style, and seeing a lot of like, because I grew up and I've noticed, just noticing trends that from years ago, noticing the Tumblr influences, noticing how like the TikTok and etc., and how passionate young people were, and how invigorated they were to share the information no matter who you were. It really brought, it was kind of like, yeah, it was kind of like a really humbling moment for me too, because like, and like I was proud, like I'm so proud to be a part and so close to a generation, because like I'm a millennial, and like watching these Gen Zers do some badass kick-ass things and sharing it with no matter how old people were, just breaking it down and making it super simple. So I think that was the number one thing I took out of it. I'm so proud of everybody in the Web3 space, especially the younger generation. And then I think keeping tracks of like how the Twitter drama also impacted people in real life, and like seeing that like during when we started at Decentral, and that was the same time within the Luna situation, it was going down just a couple weeks before that, and seeing how that itself, because that happened in Web3, here we are, that's changing how people have to talk about these things and how etc. And then also learning from these people, because of the Luna situation, about how other ways people could be protected within their wallets and etc. And when it comes to DAOs, because if you get sued for something, and if that you could sue the DAO, and like shit can get taken out. Like there's a whole bunch of complicated stuff that I am not qualified to talk about, but that's just what I know. So it's just really interesting to see how real life systems are being now implemented in a Web3 way that gives off in a very ephemeral essence of what humanity is online, and we can finally see that. And I think that's
agree.
beautiful.
I think this is what in general what technology do for us, right? I understand that Above the JPEG, it's about NFTs and Web3, but really, if we look at this, going off what you're just saying, all these technologies is just getting us closer to a place where globalism is getting us closer to a place where diversity is the norm, right? If you look back in the days where there wasn't much technologies, and there was a lot of white elitism in this country, people like us were probably not very welcomed 100 years ago. And then we had a lot of movements because and then there was social media. There was media before social media, right? There was a media. It helped women and minorities in obtaining their rights. And today we have social media, and moving on forward, we have this blockchain is really a more transparent way to connect people, really, right? Exchanging informations. So, internet was founded on this sets of characteristics that was really fascinating. I think I talked about this a bit in Decentral, which is permissionless, borderless, and anonymity, right? So essentially we're trying our best to eliminate these biases out of our judgment. Because when you're on the internet, the reason why Gen Zers, I'm a Gen Z, and the reason why Gen Zers don't really give a shit about who they're talking to is because when we are on the internet, we don't care. Like, we don't know who's who, right? Everybody's smart, everybody's stupid, and we don't care. You tweet it out and see what's going on, right? Internet is just a fun place where you don't give a shit about what's happening. Not saying that everything is great about it, right? Because sometimes there's bad things happen on the internet, but overall, I think these technologies, including blockchain, is just leading us to a place where it's a more diverse future. It's more, what's that word? It's more encompassing and
Inclusive.
inclusive. That's right. A more inclusive future. I think that's where we are going towards, and I'm very excited. I'm glad that me and you and Above the JPEG were able to be a part of this journey. And that's how I would say that's where we're heading to. I'm very excited for the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm excited for the future. I'm excited for the technology. I am not naive to people coming in and trying to change things. So I think that's like, because the blockchain is so permanent, I'm just interested to see how privacy is going to be, where we're going to go with privacy, and where we're going to go when people are trying to like skew data, and seeing really like what is really out there. Because again, a lot of just things in general, like humanity is like an illusion. So there's some ways we're taking away that illusion in Web3, if you know what you're talking about. But I don't know, I might just be putting the
Yeah, I
cart before
think
the
it's
horse there.
a whole other this discussion that we can go on, because I love to
For real.
talk more about the privacy stuff, and because that's what I'm recently working on right now. We're recently working on turning all these educational certificate credentials into NFTs, and that touches upon privacy and all that. So we're actually working on it as well, but it's a whole other discussion. Anyway, today I want to say that thank you so much, Grace. You have been a tremendous asset to Above the JPEG, as well as other people who've worked on Above the JPEG, such as Jessica. We have a lot of folks who helped out with Above the JPEG, which we're really grateful. And I really want to highlight you, Grace. It's been I couldn't have done this without you, Grace. This has been a tremendous journey. Above the JPEG season 1, we had some amazing results, and we educated so many different people in this ecosystem. So thank you so much, Grace. I really appreciate you. And for the folks out there, please keep following us on our social media and all that, because there just might be some new fun stuff coming up in the future. It's always a good place to keep connected. It's a community, and that's what I believe. It's a community. It's a community where people help each other out and keep each other updated, and really just help everybody to get to a better society in the future, a better future for our next generation. And that's all we're building here. So I'm very grateful that we're part of this.